listening to WRRT, Womp Rat Radio, Tatooine.
Isley Spaceport. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Impressive. Most impressive. You are not a Jedi yet.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power.
I love you.
I know.
It binds the galaxy together.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
No disintegration.
As you wish.
Half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
This is where the fun begins.
At last we will reveal ourselves to the Jedi.
Feel. Don't think. Use your instincts.
This is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Ahsoka. My name is Ahsoka Tano.
Why did you come here?
Because of you and your apprentice.
You already know the truth. The belonging you seek is not behind you. It is ahead.
My name's Rex. But you'll call me Captain or Sir.
Sir, yes, sir.
They said 50 years old.
The commission was quite specific. The asset was to be terminated.
Stop it!
Go ahead. Slow down. Might want to quit while you're ahead.
You might want to quit while you're behind.
Can not tear this ship apart until you found those plans and bring me the passengers. I want them alive.
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my
I
only
find
hope.
your lack of faith disturbing.
He doesn't like you.
Sorry.
I don't like you either.
I got a bad feeling about this.
Use the Force, Luke. Let go, Luke. We can't win, Darth. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine. Put Captain Solo in the cargo hold.
Could be worse.
It's worse. May the Force be with you.
Your destiny lies with me, Skywalker. Obi-Wan knew this to be true. War's not look great.
You were right. You were right about me.
Hello and welcome back to Womp Rat Radio. I'm Sam from Sam's Sleep Diary and the Disney Nerds Podcast. Joining me this evening, Ed the Maz. What is up, Ed? How are you?
Good, Sam. How are you doing?
I am doing great. And dude, it's such exciting times in the world of Star Wars. I'm so happy that you and I have the ability to have some place to talk about all this cool stuff.
I know. There's a lot going on. It's really fun to talk about it. So thanks for having me on.
There's so much. Clearly Mandalorian, but there's so much more than just Mando that we have some news to touch on. You're going to share some pretty exciting things that just came out today. Right. The Lego Star Wars special premiered on Disney Plus just a couple of days ago. I haven't watched it yet. I don't know if you've had that up. Not yet?
No, not yet. I haven't yet. I've heard things about it. They're swearing off how it's nothing like the original, but then there's like something like the original. So we'll see.
Well, it can't be like the original because you got all the new characters in it. But anyway, it's still really cool. So let's jump right into it with some news. And by the way, if you're watching, thank you so much. We're here to take a look at comments or whatever you guys might have. We appreciate you joining us. And you know what? This is just fun talking Star Wars at WompRatRadio.com and Twitter and Instagram and all that fun stuff. So let's get to some news, Ed, if that's cool, because the first topic brought to my attention because of some of the cool things that you're doing. So tell me a little bit about this Tales from the Jedi's Galaxy's Edge, although we have the trailer. So watch the trailer first, or you want to talk about it first?
Yeah, go ahead. Let's watch the trailer. It definitely tells the story.
This came out today, and here's what I saw as soon as I saw this, Ed. I see some familiar characters over here. R2, 3PO, Yoda, clearly. You have some characters that look familiar. I know a couple of these from comic books, and some others that I have no idea who these are, which I thought was cool. So let's watch the trailer for a new game that premiered or released today, and let's check it out because this is really cool. Remember, Galaxy's Edge is what's at stop. What's at Walt Disney World?
Get to the escape pod!
The First Order is paying a small fortune for a piece of your cargo. And lucky you, we're here to claim.
Stay alive and meet me in Cecil Black's cantina.
Meet us at Olga's Cantina. Is that what he just said?
You'll see in the videos later.
You're thirsty. You're in the right place.
He's got to be firing up
You
Rex.
smell like Sabi's junk pile, kid. You all right?
You're going to see him
Worried about you.
That looks cool.
The other establishments around here, but hey, this place is up and coming. You're getting in on the ground floor.
I haven't figured out why the pogs are.
The Wilds. Can you pick me up a few of my
Wilds.
trademark ingredients?
You have to go through the wilds to get
Most of them
to
probably
the
won't kill
resistance base, right, Ed?
Correct.
Yeah.
There's some friendly little creatures out there. Oh, the flying ones are particularly adorable. I heard the Droid Depot just got some new gear in stock. Why don't you say
That
hi
looks
to
like the
Momo
Droid
for me
Depot.
while you're
There,
there?
doesn't it?
Hi is code for come pay your debt. Yeah, he'll probably send you out some wild Minot chasing parts. The thing I love about Black Spire Outpost, you never know who you're gonna cross paths with.
I am the top resistance spy master.
That's the actual guy.
How dare you?
Hey, your pirate friend stopped by while you were out.
Actually, right there.
Pirate.
Yeah.
Don't worry, I told them where they can find you. You can thank me later. The locals can be a little rough on tourists, but it's nothing you can't handle. While you're here, let me tell you the story of a mysterious Jedi temple right here on Batuu.
Ooh.
Padawan Addison Z received your distress call. The council did.
A Jedi never gives up.
That's today. So that's the key right there at the end, Ed, right? It's the Oculus Rift. So I know that...
well, not the Rift, though. You got to be careful because there are different things. So this is the Oculus Quest, and the Oculus Quest is the one that they have without wires. Now, the Rift does have the wires, and that's the wire you have to connect to your computer. So the Rift is kind of tethered VR set, while the Oculus isn't. And me buying Oculus 1 2 months before Oculus 2 came out, and Oculus 2 is $100 less. So go figure.
That happened.
I have about, I think, 2 years before I think it'll be like affecting me. So I think I'll be fine. So anyway, this is the Quest, and it's a really, really fun outfit so far I've had. Here's the controller, or one of them. I have two of these guys.
Oh, nice. So you wear that on your hand? Yeah?
I'm sorry?
You wear it, right?
Correct. Yeah, I'm not going to put it on right now, but I do wear it.
No, you don't have to. I mean, the thing on your hand, it goes on your hand?
Oh, yeah, definitely. And it's kind of cool in that it's very intuitive, the controller. When you put it on, all your fingers kind of fit on the buttons they're supposed to pull,
nice.
Stuff like that. And there's a bunch of right there buttons.
Very nice.
And what's cool about the Oculus is they also have free hands for a lot of the games, so you don't even use the controllers. What you see in the virtual world are your hands, and you kind of select things with your fingers and stuff like that.
I like it. So Ed, you sent me some screenshots from your gameplay earlier.
I couldn't help it. I couldn't help it. I've been waiting for the 19th for like 2 weeks now since I ever even heard this was going to happen. Longer than that. And I got it first thing this morning, and sure, I had to start sending these things out to you guys right away.
Absolutely. So this is cool. This tells from Galaxy's Edge. You're in Black Spire Outpost. And this ties so well. I mean, even in that trailer, when you look out at Galaxy's Edge, it's like you're looking in the Walt Disney World.
It's great.
It's awesome.
And one of the pictures I sent you guys was an overhead view of the outpost from way up on top, like when you're looking up on those mountains up top there, and you're looking back down at this little like speck of an outpost. Real quick, that toolbar down in the bottom there, that's part of my quest. Whenever I take a picture, that thing shows up. Excuse me. So
nice.
Well, you see that, but that's not part of the game.
No, I get it.
The other thing cool about this picture real quick is on the right side, that's an option for future content. So when you drop that now, you'll see a reference to that Jedi, the temple episode they mentioned there in the trailer. which is cool. You showed the trailer because I know what I can talk about now and what I can't talk about.
Right.
So there's other spaces in there already, and they say coming in 2021. So the actual purchase was $25 for the game itself. So I figure for add-ons, it's got to be less than that. So that's awesome.
That is. I'm going to fast forward to a little gameplay here, but keep talking.
No, and we've been waiting for this a lot. It's going to be Galaxy's Edge, so I'm going to be looking at the outpost. I'm going to be walking around, hopefully in the same place I was walking around at Disney World. But haven't seen that yet. I'm still out in the wilds of Batuu at this point, working through.
But out in the wild, that's if you know the story of Galaxy's Edge and the story of Batuu, when you're in the wild, you're going to find the Resistance place, which is where the attraction is. But some of that stuff looked like the Q area, and then you went into the Droid Depot. It looks exactly like the Droid Depot looks.
Yeah, it did. And my ship actually has a bunch of droid parts, and kind of the gist of the story is I'm on my way to Batuu to deliver parts, and I get hijacked.
Okay. By the First Order. Or by pirates?
Pirates. Yeah.
Okay.
Paid by the First Order. They do talk about that.
All right, here we go.
Here's like the first thing, absolute thing I see for the first time. And I'm going to point out the irony of this whole shot in that, look what I'm going to do with these like headsets right here. And I'm wearing a headset already, of course.
So you have to put on the VR headset in the virtual world.
Right. Which I still haven't figured out the importance of this yet, because this is exactly what I saw when I put those on, and then I saw everything again. So
that's kind of cool right there.
Yeah, no doubt. And then things like that highlight the items I can pick up and such like. And that's when I turn the video off, so you'll see that. I haven't edited these yet. I haven't had time.
No, I understand. That's all right. Thanhanks for sharing.
This one I have to take because one of my favorite droids that don't like talk and don't want to deal with anybody are these power droids.
The gonk
everywhere. And it was so cool to see one walking around the hallway. I had to just like kind of stop and take a look at it.
That is cool. I love those things because it's from the original. In fact, we're going to talk about a gonk a little later on when we talk Mandalorian because they're showing up all over the place in that world.
True.
I think this is your next video.
So let's point this out too, is that everything is written in Aurebesh, which we'll talk about in a little bit, and then it translates to English. So it's kind of cool. You'll see the letters.
I got to do that again just so we see it again.
Listen to the conversation when this starts because you're going to hear about Ogas.
Okay.
Think you own the place, huh? Get out of here! Take your hands for that! I'll show you! This is my part! I stood up to Ogas so buddy, I could stand up to you. Leave! Now!
Nice.
Yeah, it was kind of anticlimactic, but
yeah, because he's fighting off the board.
Welcome in. If you're thirsty, you're in the right place.
But he said he stood up to he was standing up to the guy from Ogas, so he was kind of acknowledging that there is another cantina in the area, but he's on kind of the outskirts.
That's cool. There's another cantina. Maybe they'll build that one someday. Who knows, right?
Oh yeah, and basically that's the base of the whole game itself is that area. And he sends you on missions, you keep coming back, or stories. And that's where I came up with the idea where they're going to have the other stories that kind of tied into what he was doing there.
And that's awesome. I absolutely love it, Ed. The gaming is getting incredible. In fact, a couple of weeks ago, we talked about Squadrons. And since then, Squadrons, which I've been playing, not with my VR headset, but just with my Xbox controller and being able to look around inside the cockpit and talk to people, which you had mentioned that you can also do that with the 3D glasses.
You can. So now one of the things with the Quest is, though, it's not a wired VR headset. What it can do, though, is you can plug it into your computer if your computer is strong enough, and you can play wired VR games. Because a game like Squadrons, I think, has so much intricacies to it that it needs the extra power of the computer to kind of generate all that and keep it like track of it. However, my computer isn't strong enough to do that. I did see there was a version of the old arcade game, the X-Wing game you used to play.
Sure.
Out there, which I'm trying to find a way I can get on the machine. I think I have a chance.
Oh, that would be cool. So what they did for Squadron is they introduced new content. Which, by the way, is free, although I'm sure you can probably purchase content later. But a couple of new ships, a couple of new maps, a new person, so that they're expanding that game as well, which is cool. It just keeps getting bigger and bigger.
Did you play the old TIE Fighter and X-Wing games back in the day when they first came out?
X-Wing Pilot was one of my favorite.
How does this compare?
It is, I'll be honest, because some of the games got a little too complicated to play. I like this one because there are times when it reminds me of X-Wing Pilot. You put it in story mode and you just go, here's your mission. You need to attack this, take out these ties, then dock over here. But the interesting part of Squadrons is if you play story mode, you jump sides back and forth. So there's different storylines happening simultaneously, and for a while you're one of the resistance team, and then all of a sudden you're part of the first order team, and they go back and forth in different things that are happening, and it puts it in story, and it's really good. I like it.
I've heard nothing but great things about the VR version of Squadrons. I mean, I've seen some videos. The guy's literally in the X-Wing cockpit looking around and going down the controls and doing things, and it's amazing. So
I say I like it. I like it in the easiest story mode. I don't want it to be too hard for me. I want the story as much as I want to shoot down an X-Wing or a TIE Fighter. So that's
Oh, here's a question for you about it. Is it a story-based game, meaning there's going to be a beginning and an end, or is it accumulating, keep getting better and better at? And you just
haven't gotten to any end yet. Let's put it that way. But the storylines continue to move forward and move in interesting directions.
And the only reason I asked that is because the other big Star Wars games they've had out the last couple of years, it's more of like an online experience where you continue just to keep playing. It never really is getting you anywhere.
Right.
So cool. Just curious.
Right. All right. So another big piece of news that came out this week, maybe not for us, but for some of the kids out there, Minecraft Star Wars is finally here.
Like some type of Minecraft overlay or something like that a long time ago.
Yeah, an overlay or whatever they call those things, but a skin pack I think is it. But I love some of the worlds here. Are you kidding me? Vader and Luke fighting on the Death Star, or the line up here. There's one of your Gonk droids right there, Ed.
Yep.
Along with R2 and R5 and a Treadwell droid, and of course the Mandalorian is part of this too. So that's always cool.
Nice.
It's definitely cool. All right. Speaking of Mandalorian, I guess we sort of have to segue there because it's been 2 weeks since we talked last, which means 2 new episodes of Mandalorian, which means so many things that we want to talk about and kind of get together. It's just me and you this week, but I think we can get through this stuff.
Oh, sure. I'm sure we can.
So chapter 10 was Passenger, where we got to meet Frog Lady. And I don't think she has a name or a species.
No, not yet.
So it's kind of like the child, but it's the frog, I guess.
Frog Lady is the biggest description I've heard so far.
That's the only thing I can find when you do some homework or research on it. And actually, one of the things that I wanted to do was go back to chapter 5, the Gunslinger. And this is a clip from that. So at the time, Mando walks into the cantina, and we didn't realize this at the time, but check out these 3 very quick references that we get here. We get the Frog Lady, Dr. Mandible, and R5. Just like that, in passing in chapter 5, and we don't hear about any of those until way later in the saga. So I thought that was just...
They didn't have that actress already signed to do the Mandalorian, the mechanic. Peli Motor, I think her name is.
Yeah, I think I got a slide coming up on that because it's another interesting connection. But isn't that cool that there's the Frog Lady, just a random cantina person, and even Dr. Mandible, who looks similar to back in A New Hope. They had that, it looked like more of a praying mantis creature that was in the back corner. Do you recall that?
Sure. All the creatures in the cantina.
It was. So we learned is Dr. Mandible. Dr. Mandible is
that doesn't sound like a Star Wars name, though. I mean, that's Dr. Mandible.
Well, an insectoid alien really doesn't either.
Mm-hmm.
So
more Trek than anything.
It does.
But
although I believe the director of this episode also directed Ant-Man and Ant-Man and the Wasp. So
right, yep, he did.
He's got some experience with ants or whatever Dr. Mandible might.
We'll call it that.
Sure, that's cool.
It's like an ant head. I could say that's more an ant-looking thing than anything.
Yeah, well, it's definitely more ant than in A New Hope, because in New Hope that was like praying mantis, is what it looked like. All right, so we're not going to go through every step of all of them, but kind of point out the highlights. Mando, of course, has he's leaving Tatooine. He's got Boba Fett's armor. He had just finished taking out the crate dragon, and he's got some crate dragon meat with him, and he comes back to meet I'm blanking on her name now. You had it a second ago. I might have it in a minute.
Moto?
Yes, Motos. Mottos is her little hanger thing. And she's playing a game of cards against Dr. Mandible and asks the Mandalorian to ante up, basically. And she pulls out what is called an idiot's array. And I thought that was interesting, the term idiot's array. So I did a little homework on it. And it is indeed a hand from Sabak, I'm sorry, which is the game that they had played. And I went back and found the first reference to it, which comes from Star Wars Rebels, Season 1, Episode 11, which is called Idiot's Array. It's the name of the episode. And in this episode, Zeb is encountering Lando Calrissian, but doesn't yet know who he is.
So, do we have a bet?
And he's betting Chopper, if you know the storyline at all. Sabak. He's got Sabak.
I win.
Not so.
Which is like a straight flush.
I have an idiot's array.
So,
which is like a royal.
He has the idiot's array.
I have an idiot.
The idiot's array is a 2 of 3 in the idiot card. So Ed, that might be some translation for you to pick up later.
Oh yeah, definitely a little clearer version of that one.
A little clearer, but that is the idiot's array, which is how he won that, which I thought was kind of cool. Then he goes on, of course, to meet. And by the way, there's a lot of references in The Mandalorian back to Rebels, which you're going to see as we move forward here, and it's kind of interesting to say the least. Speaking of, Ed, the piece of crate dragon meat, she gave that to a Treadwell droid, which we'll talk about in a second, as she comes out. And look at that, they're roasting it on
a
pod racer, which is clearly a shout out to one of our favorite places, right?
Sure. Now, did you know that the droid here is actually called, his designation is a smelter droid at Ronto?
The one at Ronto's roaster.
Yes.
The one that he's not in this picture. He's on the other side of this picture, but it looks like a protocol. It actually looks more like a medical droid than a protocol droid.
He was J8 something 4, and the actual designation is a smelter droid, which makes sense because if he's supposed to be working around smelters, melting metal, he's perfect to be working the barbecue.
He's perfect working the barbecue, and that's so you got to love that Mandalorian with a reference or a callback to Galaxy's Edge and Walt Disney World and Disneyland. Absolutely love that.
Crossing. Sure.
Yeah. Another one is the droid there. I mentioned him, a Treadwell droid. This is actually a deleted scene from A New Hope, but that's where those things first showed up, and they also show up with a bunch of hands. I think there was one in the droid lineup, but they're starting to show up in a lot of places within a Star Wars universe. And the other one I wanted to point out, Ed, was your favorite, the Gonk. The Gonk or the GNK.
Droid. So it's a GNK droid. How about that?
Or they call him Gonk, G-O-N-K. But it's a GNK droid, which is basically a big battery. That's what the description is. If you look
generator, GN, I don't know what the K would be, but generator something.
It's a big battery. That's all that sucker is. And I thought that was kind of cool to watch.
Usually came around ships.
It usually came around ships or in the shipyard or someplace like that. And of course, we meet our frog lady with the child and her eggs, which I thought were really fun.
You got to see the first cool frog effect too here when she kind of ate her food with her tongue.
Yeah, she ate the food with her tongue.
Flipping
after Baby Yoda had helped himself to a couple of her eggs.
Are we going to go into that? Like, that there's a big controversy going on in the world of Star Wars, or there has been for the last couple of weeks about.
He ate an egg. It's okay.
The baby eater, the infanticide perpetrator.
He didn't eat the baby. I mean, he ate the egg.
True, and that's what my argument was going to be, because the whole story is that they're taking these eggs to the planet to meet the father to fertilize them. So they are literally eggs, and we're moving on.
And moving on. All right. So this was interesting, I thought, though, when you brought this up.
Right.
Those two characters are both the same actress, different voices, clearly, but they're the same actress, Misty Rosa. And I thought that was pretty neat that they brought her back to be another character. So just make the suit her size.
And she can now act like a lady, like a female.
Yeah. She doesn't talk. Well, she didn't talk in either one of them, right? Because it was this one, the frog lady is voiced by the guy from the Clone Wars, Bradley Baker. He does the voice of the frog. I don't know how.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, what kind of voicing are they doing there? But yeah, her mannerisms, her mime style is very great. She's really good at that. She acts through her movements.
Absolutely. And you can see them through this whole thing. And of course, there's another great picture, right? The cute little.
You know, it's funny because you see him the first time and it was just like wonder, and he was like, I thought he was going to do something force-wise with the egg.
Me too, because he's moving his hand and it looked like they were moving to him.
Yes.
I thought the exact same thing.
Little did we all know.
Or did he just want to bring them to him and ends up with? I got to show the scene.
No. That is not food.
He almost got a finger too. A child.
He almost got it.
I think the count was like 7, 5 or 6 or something. Like something. It was getting up there.
I lost count of those things. I was trying to keep count, but I clearly lost count.
It was like the backstory joke, though. I mean, they kept doing it and they kept looking at each other every time. So it was the silent slapstick,
which was good.
Yeah.
All right, and Mando agrees to take passage of the Frog Lady to whatever planet we need to go to. Not sure what it is. And on the way, he runs into a couple of X-wings.
Task, I think, is the planet.
Task is the planet he's going to. Thank you.
Yep. Yeah, the X-wings are cool. They're always cool.
The X-wings are cool, and of course, we have a reappearance of Trapper Wolf.
That's a hell of a name for a pilot, but I'll go with it.
It's a hell of a name for a pilot, but come on, given the fact that is Dave Filoni, you know that's the name he always wanted his Star Wars character to be.
Definitely.
Trapper Wolf, which is good. And we also have a first appearance by Captain Carson Teva, which is played by a gentleman that's part of a Canadian sitcom team, Kim's Convenience.
Stan, where are you? We need you, Stan.
We do. We need Stan right now. We're going to bring him up on this one later. So now the question is, because ultimately, you know, the way the scene goes, they show up, and this was one of the previews we saw. He tries to get away from him, and they're chasing him, and he ends up crash landing on a planet. And I had read someplace, and I couldn't tie this all back together, but the planet that he lands on in Chapter 11, crash lands on, is the same planet that he went to in Chapter 1 to pick up the first bounty that we saw him pick up.
Wow, that makes a lot more sense, because there were some beasties on that planet under the ice.
Remember the big one that came out chasing him and almost grabbed onto the ship when it left?
Yeah, it makes sense. Although there's
also means he's in the same corner of the Outer Rim, right, Ed? Did
you actually see that this was the planet? Because Hoth is the same way too. So I don't think there's a bunch of these ice planets.
I would think so. I read somewhere it is the same planet, but I can't find it again to verify it. So that's on my list of things to do. So that's why I put a question mark here, because it makes sense, especially if he's traveling sublight and he's not far from where he is. So this planet's clearly close to Tatooine. It's close to this task, and they're all close to each other.
And that was something else they kind of made a point to say, is they had to go sublight because the eggs, which ended up making them prime targets for, well, they got caught by the X.
For everybody.
Is what happened.
Wow.
Which is very important, because this also is a small little like breadcrumb telling us what's happened. The war is over with the Empire. The rebels are now the government, and they're now starting to enforce some of the rules that the Empire might have been lax on and start confirming people. So I think it's kind of cool that we see this.
Yeah, absolutely. And they end up letting him go. I love how, well, we'll get to the part where they come back, but and a part that I might not really like these darn spider things.
Well, you know, the child brought it on himself. You can't deny that.
Oh, the child did. He you know,
everything he sees into his face caused this entire thing to happen.
Frog Lady, the innocence of a child that breaks, all heck breaks loose because of that, right?
Sure.
But by the way, this is an image from that episode, and this is an image from Star Wars Rebels.
Right.
So back in Rebels, we actually had an encounter with something similar, but it was on a desert planet, not a frozen planet, which makes you wonder how many planets are out there that have weird spider-looking creatures in them.
There's a ton. There's a Harry Potter planet out there, the same thing.
The same way? So I got a clip from, this is the Rebels Season 2, Episode 20, The Mystery of Chopper Base. But interesting in that, look, they're eggs.
Are those eggs?
It's never good when they're eggs.
I'm gonna use a hand over here.
This way.
And there you go. You end up with sort of the same spider chasing these guys around, and they end up in a battle with it.
When the child first saw the eggs, my first. And there actually is a
So,
reference again in episode 3 we'll talk about. There's another reference to these guys getting their revenge.
To the eggs or to
no the little spider guys. Well, we'll talk about it in 3. It's coming up.
All right. Okay. All right. There's more of them. Those things are everywhere. I thought it was interesting when the frog lady leveraged Zero, the protocol droid, to do some translation.
Because they had to talk to her outside, and then the husband was there, and he had to talk to the husband, and they couldn't understand each other. He should just carry the head around and talk to people.
You're right. Just carry it around, and however she wired that thing up. So they end up getting off of the planet after an encounter with all of these things, and they take off, and that's where we end chapter 10 with some really cool concept art. And Ed, I do just love looking at that concept art because there's some just amazing images. The spiders coming after them, even the 2 X-Wings going after the Razor Crest.
Right. And you know what? It's kind of them at the end was kind of really, really odd because, and before we finished, when they came back, they rescued them because, and of course, by now, there's spoilers here, but it's like the Razor Crest was taking off and then the big one jumped on it. And then the next thing you know, you see all this red light. The X showed up and saved the day and then basically told them that, hey, you know what? We're not going to give you a ticket, but you better be careful next time and fix it or, take care of the problems. And then they let him go. So I don't know why they even came back to find him if they were just going to let him go once they found out all the information. So
he did say, and I had this clip, but I didn't move it. He did say that he would forgive the bounty for the 3 criminals that he apprehended.
Well, yeah, because they were all wanted. So
they were all wanted, right?
I see what you're saying about the money. Yeah.
Yeah, he basically said, "Hey, I'll forget about the bounty," and then they commended him for standing up for the Lieutenant Devon, who ended up perishing in the assault anyway on the planet, or on the prisoner ship. But that was back in the prisoner episode.
Right.
So there's the frog lady who finds the hot spring in the middle of the planet. I guess that's there's
when they were running. She went all 4s and went all frog at that one point.
Oh yeah, that was so cool, man. Mm-hmm. She just got boom. That's when you knew it was a frog for certain.
Yeah.
Dr. Mandible.
So right here, this is the shot up above her to the right. That's the shot. Yes. Khan.
Yeah, you know what? You're absolutely right. It's the same table.
Yep.
That's the shot. I love it, Ed. I love it. That's the same table where Han and Greedo hung out. Take it back. Nice. Boom. That's awesome. Then, of course, the eggs got to get back into the ship. This is the crash landing.
Of course. Just another quick comment. These ships take so much compared to how NASA has to be so gentle with the ships they put into space. Crap out of these ships. For this to be able to take off from this planet, that's ridiculous. Come on.
It is. Look at the hole in the side of this thing, and
the entire ship is cold. And the engine's still working, and they're kind of out in not protected areas too. So I'm being nitpicky. Let's move on.
You are, but you know what? I'm good with it. So that's where we end up. There's the X-Wings come back and fire to take out all these things, all these spiders, which I forget their name, but that's okay.
You're gonna have great aim not to hit the Razor Crest.
Yeah, it's a big ship. They're not stormtroopers. They're trained resistance pilots.
Yeah, okay.
Or are they resistance? Or are they still rebels? I'm not exactly sure.
They are the Republic now.
That's right. They're the New Republic.
Yep.
And they do mention that.
Yep.
All right. So all of that said, it's time to move to chapter 11, which, by the way, guys, we want to do this tonight because chapter 12 comes out tomorrow. Are you kidding me?
I can't wait. One of the things we'll talk about was the main reason, but we'll get to it.
Absolutely. We're going to get to it. Absolutely. So, I mean, Disney gives you a poster for every episode, and this is the poster for episode 11. And that's just awesome because it gives you an idea where we're going.
I didn't see that beforehand. So was it released before the episode?
I think it released the same day of. Like, you can't find any information for chapter 12 today, which is Thursday, the 19th. But I think tomorrow you'll find it if you look for it.
Right. No, I'm so happy I didn't see it beforehand because and we'll get to it, when she took off her helmet, I was so happy to be so surprised to who it was.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're going to get to that because I want to tie some things together along those ways. But before that, of course, every episode starts up with some little mishap and then they play the opening credits. Then they're continuing their voyage from the planets where the spiders were. They got to take off. They set out into hyperspace. And in this episode, they're arriving at or come out of hyperspace at Tusk, which is the place they were going, and have kind of a rough landing on the arrival. I want to play this, Ed, and then we're going to do some interesting stops along the way here.
Yep.
So this was the arrival.
He's loving it.
Yeah, he's just bouncing around down there, right?
Yep.
But I stopped here on purpose because, Ed, I know that you are into translating Star Wars languages, right?
Yeah, I hate to admit it, but I am that much of a Star Wars nerd in that once I found out in Galaxy's Edge in Florida that they have Aurebesh as a language, I was able to go back and I see it in all the cartoons and Clone Wars and the last 3
everywhere.
Movies. So I want to know, whenever they use it, does it really mean anything?
By the way, my favorite one, Ed, is the water fountains at Galaxy's Edge, which you pointed out to me. I don't have the picture here, but I wish I did. What's written above and below the water fountains?
I don't know. What is it?
You told me it's not fit for human consumption.
Oh, right. Okay, yeah.
And the water fountains, I just thought that was so funny.
But there's always that around there, and there's 2 types. There's one that's actually informative, meaning this is like docking bay, whatever, and it'll say docking bay, and it translates out. There you go.
Right.
But then there's also the ones like just Sam mentioned about their great little kind of funny jokes behind the scenes where, and it's like kind of nods to the different Star Wars episodes or different like kind of lines. But so I'll stop and I'll kind of translate every so often just for shits and giggles. I want to just see what it kind of says just to see if it matches up.
This, by the way, is what you have to look at it. And I think you even mentioned it. Sometimes it's the fonts are slightly different. It's hard to figure out what's what, but you can decode this.
Okay, I found this out hooking it up for the scavenger hunt. They have capital letters and small letters, and what they do is they mirror them. So, like when you have that D there, it's open to the left. Well, a small D would be open to the right.
Okay.
Because you have to have whatever. I'm going into details being the nerd.
No, that's good. But by the way, you mentioned something that I want to bring up for anybody that might be watching this later. The Disney Nerds podcast, Scavenger Hunt, absolutely unbelievable. This year, not quite as good as prior years, but it's going to be better next year. So anyway, back to the first image, and I'm going to let you go with this, the one we landed on, because this one was kind of, this one was okay, right?
Well, yeah, this one was perfect because I stopped this one because I'm just curious. In the little square in the top left of the screen, it has a message flashing. And when I translated this one, it was perfect. Landing gear disabled. I'm sorry, it's offline. And when you see the letters there's 3 words. And the second word, you see it's O, and then the 2 letters are the same, FF. It's offline. Yep. Fine, whatever. But then when he was
sense, but that's good. The curiosity of does this mean something? And yes, it does. I get it.
Right, and it matched perfectly what's going on in the scene. He couldn't drop the landing gear. That was his complaint.
So what you did then is kept watching and noticed that changed.
Well, yeah, because they flashed to the ship dropping and to Mando's helmet, and then they flashed back to the screen again. And I kind of noticed really quick because I wouldn't normally have been nerdy enough to stop a second time. But the lettering was different this time. There was more words, and it seemed a little different. So I was like, okay, let me check out what this one said. And I was really kind of thrown off with this, and I'm really happy that I've been doing this for so long because I think I finally found something. Basically, this translates out to, of course, I still love you. Of course, I still love you. So now, it's not the ship telling Mando it loves him, obviously. What does that mean?
This is a hidden message that you found. This is the ultimate Easter egg that no one else has brought up yet. That's what it is. And by the way, 3:54. That's the exact minutes and seconds where I took that screenshot from right there because I couldn't find it, and you told me it was there, and I kept looking and looking. I'm like, oh, there it is, and you can see it's different.
And you'll see the shot going through it. You'll have the landing message flash to Mando. You'll come back. It's this message flash to Mando on the landing, and then you come back to the original message again. So it was luck that I caught it, but it's still cool. And this is the whole thing that flashes me back and why I'm looking. Do you know the story of the, I'm flashing it. What's the story with the mice that fly and look for the little boy who's lost? Oh, I'm really kind of hurting because
this one.
The movie, I'll think of the name in a second. I'm really kind of sorry I don't have it. But anyway, the whole idea was an animator from Disney put in the cover of a Playboy magazine into one of the
Rescuers Down Under.
I'm sorry. Well, it's the first one. So forget the Down Under part of it. But
Just the Rescuers.
Right. The Rescuers. And as they're kind of taking off, they dive down in the Manhattan. And as you're passing, one of the windows has the Playboy cover in the window, and it's a naked lady.
One frame.
I'm sorry? One clip. Exactly. I think it's 30 frames a second was the way they animated. And in the theaters, you never would have seen that. However, with VCRs and tapes, you could stop it, and they finally saw it. So I'm always looking for those hidden messages, and you got to know they do it, and you got to do it in like kind of harmless ways. So boom, I lucked out.
This is somebody hiding a message. So I think you said it best. Whoever directed this one, or Dave Filoni, tell us what's going on here, man.
Yeah, it was Bryce Dallas Howard directed.
Yeah. Maybe it's for Ron then. A message from him.
Not wrote it. Favreau wrote it. So
John or Dave or Bryce, somebody
they might not know anything about it.
What do we win for finding it?
The computer tech guys who put the scene together.
That's right. It could have just been them. You're absolutely right. And by the way, the second place I saw it is when it was green, and it's like the only place that it was green.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So I did find it in two different places, and I couldn't find the fine stamp. I couldn't find the stamp of that, but it's when they flash back to the Razor Crest as well.
Right. And and getting back to the whole show, this whole landing scene was really, really cool scene, especially for how the landing ended, and then what we got to see as far as them correcting it, the Razor Crest. Do you have that scene, or we can talk about it?
I don't have that image. I had it, and it didn't make it into the thing there. But it's an AT-AT that basically they took it and turned it into a rescue crane of sorts, where it's walking in the water and it just picks it. That's so cool. But clearly, it's an AT-AT.
And that's another where you have kind of the rebels, where they went out into the desert and they found some of those older clone troopers who were on an AT-AT also, but their AT-AT was basically just like an RV. They roam in the desert, and they basically just had a living quarters and tech
Rex and his buddies. Yeah, that was good.
So
all right,
so the stuff
to the bigger part of this episode, and we need to sort of tie up some loose ends, Ed, before we talk about this, because I'm not going to go back to the beginning, but I want to go back to Rebels Season 4. Heroes of Mandalore. This is a 2-part episode. So in season 4, this was episode number 1. And in this episode, we see Sabine Wren, who's Mandalorian, has the armor, all that good stuff. And I'm not going to say how she got it, but she starts this episode by leading into battle with the Black Saber. Okay. And there's a story behind the Black Saber. The Black Saber was built by the only Mandalorian Jedi, and there's a whole backstory there. But bottom line is she has it in this episode. And as this episode continues forward, we get to maybe partway through the first part of this, and she meets somebody during that process here.
Who are you?
Kanan and Ezra, this is Lady Bo-Katan of House Kryze. Her sister, Satine, once ruled Mandalore. Bo-Katan was made regent by the Jedi before the end of the Clone War. She's still seen by many as Mandalore's rightful ruler.
So what happened?
After the Empire took over, I refused to obey the Emperor and was betrayed by the Saxon clan.
Your commitment to Mandalore's freedom is legendary, my lady. This belongs to you.
So Sabine attempts to give her the dark saber, which she doesn't take at that point. But that's one of the first times that we run into. Well, it's the first time in Rebels that we run into Bo-Katan, because she was in the Clone Wars cartoons as well. So it's cool to kind of see that character, right?
And we had the reference to Satine, who was Obi-Wan's interest.
Satine was her sister, ruler of Mandalore, and love interest of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Spoiler alert. But even more reasons to go back and watch Rebels on Disney Plus, and even the Clone Wars. This stuff's all coming together.
Sure.
Isn't it cool the way that happens? So of course, there's an adventure that happens in that first episode of Heroes of Mandalore. And in the second episode at the end, this is how we see it end after a huge battle between the Empire and some Mandalores.
Now I understand why the saber came to me. It came to me so I could pass it to you.
I accept this sword for my sister. For my clan. And for all of Mandalore.
So there you go. She ends up taking the dark saber, and that's how we see the end of the dark saber in Star Wars Rebels. It's with Bo-Katan ruling Mandalore, all of the clans united, because there's different houses and different clans, and there's an incredible amount of detail that went into both the Clone Wars and Star Wars Rebels, and Dave Filoni is at the heart of that in establishing all of this lore around Mandalore and Mandalorians and all those things. It's amazing, Ed.
So do you think at the time they were thinking this was going to be a TV show on Disney Plus that would be making them billions of dollars down the road?
Heck no. Heck no. They're just trying to get the next season of Rebels, to be honest, which there was no season 5. Season 4 was the end.
Mm-hmm. True.
But it's just like, wow, when you look at this storyline. So now, if you sort of know that background, know what's sort of happening, and then you fast forward for those of us that were diehard Disney nerds or diehard Star Wars nerds, the next time we saw the Darksaber was in Chapter 8 when Moff Gideon cuts himself out of the TIE fighter with it. And this is why everyone was going, how did he get it? What happened? How did he get this thing? Clearly something happened between Rebels and here where the Empire, Moff Gideon in particular, got a hold of the Darksaber.
Right.
So that's why the internet of Star Wars nerds and people like us here at WompRatRadio went nuts when we saw Moff Gideon come out with the Darksaber.
Right. We're trying to tie down timelines too, because Rebels takes place right before New Hope, and
Rebels goes right. The end of Rebels goes right into The Force Awakens, because it's the one place in Star Wars lore where the time frames cross. Right, because if you remember in The Force Awakens, there's General Hux just standing up, and everybody, he's got all of the troopers on Starkiller Base, and there's tons of them, and he's yelling at them and telling them we're going to rule everybody and crush everybody else. That exact same scene is in Rebels from a different angle, because the Rebels guys were kind of sneaking around while it was happening. It was the only time when it crossed paths. It's really cool.
Right. Very cool. Okay.
All right. So if I keep going, then Mando ends up on his boat. You know, we're back in this current episode.
To deliver this child.
Which, by the way,
I was hoping that.
Oh, you missed the best part though, real quick. Before you even go on,
go ahead.
Talk about him getting eaten at all.
You know what? No, let's talk about it real quick. Let's talk about when they knocked him in there.
I thought this was the ultimate payback from episode 2, from the last episode, because in episode he was popping eggs that like you couldn't believe.
Yeah.
Eaten in this episode, the little child, the child
in his egg.
It was like the ultimate payback, is what I was
inside his egg. Yeah, I get it.
So that's all. Keep going.
No, I will keep going. But the one thing I do want to bring up before we move forward, is the fact that in Rebels, you saw it clear that Mandalorians took their helmets off quite a bit.
Right.
In fact, they always took their helmets on. And it was Jimmy in a previous episode of WompRatRadio that said, why doesn't Mando take his helmet off? I don't understand it. And we start to see a little bit of that in this clip. After they save the child and all of those things, they take their helmets off.
I was hoping that.
We were all shocked too.
They're all shocked. He's like, whoa, wait.
Where did you get that armor?
This armor has been in my family for 3 generations.
You do not cover your face.
Interesting, right?
Requested to.
The next line the actor on the right says is like the key one. He's one of them.
You got it.
I am Bo-Katan.
So now we know it's Bo-Katan for sure.
Of Clan Kryze. I was born on Mandalore and fought in the Purge. I am the last of my line. And you are a child of the Watch.
The Watch?
All right. What is the Watch? We got something to look into here, right?
Can we use a Game of Thrones reference? Could it be like the guards on the edge of the whole Mando galaxy or area? Maybe, I don't know.
It could be. It's interesting as heck. They're like, you're one of them. Not that it's too bad, but there are a couple other things that happen in this episode that we don't have time to get into. But there's one thing that Bo-Katan's after, and it's pretty clear, and she brings it up multiple times.
Sure.
This is more than I signed up for.
There is something I need if I am to rule Mandalore, something that was once mine. They know where it is, and soon so will I. Regardless, we are taking the ship for the battles ahead.
She should have your weapons. I have to return to my ship with the Foundling.
If you want my help finding the Jedi, you will help me take this ship.
Basically, she needs something off of the Empire. What do you think that something is, right? And it comes up again and again. And this was interesting because she changed the deal on Mando, and I cut off the end when she says this is the way, which I thought was interesting.
Yep. For her needs, this is the way. And I think it's assumed that Moff Gideon has it, because she could have just literally asked Mando, have you seen it? And he would say, hey, yeah, guess what happened a couple of months ago? Moff Gideon had it. I guess we're past it too.
Yeah. And that even goes on because she...
Where is it?
There's what?
The Dark Saber. Does he have it?
If you're asking, you already know.
That was an interesting point as well. She's after one thing, the Dark Saber. She's looking for that.
And she knows the Moff pretty personally too.
So how do you get it?
The Jedi.
And that leads us back to the other part, right? Which is, so she wants the Dark Saber. She needs the ship and the weapons in the ship to go and fight to get it. What does Mando want? He wants to find a Jedi so that he can finish his mission of taking the child back to its people. So there's a lot of information in this tiny clip here.
Where can I find the Jedi?
Take the Foundling to the city of Caladan on the forest planet of Corvus. There you will find Ahsoka Tano. Tell her you were sent by Bo-Katan. And thank you. Your bravery will not be forgotten. This is the way.
This is the way.
All right, so much data, and my head's like boom, right? My head's ready to explode, Ed, watching this.
Well, first, the main one is Ahsoka Tano. We're gonna finally see her. We're assuming the next episode, and when she sees the child, a person who knew Yoda, we're gonna find out a lot of details. I hope
her reaction. I mean, what is she gonna say? Like, or was that her earlier in the episodes, hiding sort of in the back? Remember the image that was there that disappeared?
Stepping out of the storyline, I have heard a lot of stories saying that that's not her at all. That was somebody else, and it's somebody that's going to be later described.
Could be Sabine Wren. People have said that, who we saw in Rebels, right?
I don't even think that. I first thought it was the other Mandalorian that was here, the girl Mandalorian. I had thought it was her. I never really got back to take a closer look. So
no, neither did I. But if you think about it, at the end of Rebels, you have Ahsoka Tano and Sabine Wren sort of walking off in the distance together.
Mm-hmm.
So those two could be together, and that could tie this whole thing back. And
that'd be a really great surprise, Sabine.
Yeah, and guys, if you haven't watched the Rebels or the Clone Wars, you need to go back and watch them. That's for sure. So here's what's kind of cool about that character. That's the cartoon version and the live action version, voiced by the same person, by the way.
Sure, Starbuck from Battlestar Galactica, among other things.
Yeah. But that's
yelling it. She took her helmet off, and I was yelling Starbuck. I didn't realize it was going to be her.
Right. I don't think anybody did. That's Bo-Katan. She's she was the last rightful ruler of Mandalore with the Darksaber before Moff Gideon got the Darksaber somehow. Mm-hmm. And she's taking us to see Ahsoka. I mean, that's cool. And these guys know each other. That's a shot from Clone Wars. These two know each other. So,
I never noticed that. Look at the hair, the headgear. They're basically wearing the same type of headgear.
Yeah, very similar.
I'm not even sure what that's supposed to do, to be honest with you.
I don't either. Is it Beskar? That's what I was wondering on Bo-Katan. When she took the thing up, I wondered if it was Beskar or not. To be honest,
device or I have no idea what that is, other than a nice tie.
All right, I want to kind of diverge a little bit here because there's a phrase, Ed, that's come up again and again and again on these Mandalorians. Well, not again and again, but a couple of times. And I think, Ed, we have our first Star Wars curse saying, I guess is what I'd say.
Okay.
Let me play this here. I'm going to play it. And I got 2 times where this came up.
Dang.
And...
Dang, Ferric, that was close.
He's one of them.
Dank Ferric.
Dank Ferric
Dank?
is a Star Wars. It's been used at least 4 times. I couldn't find it other than those 2.
Two different contexts, too. 2 very different contexts. One's like, "Holy shit, I got this." The other one's like, "Just hold your horses."
Now, the other one's like, "Gosh darn it." And the other one's like, "Gosh darn it." Right? That's kind of what I got. But the first one that's clearly from the first episode. Dank Ferric, that was close right after the thing almost ate them. And then the second one.
Dank Ferric.
Mando says it at 1.2 regarding his ship and the status of the ship. So.
Right. Yeah, we'll figure that out. Here's the at the beginning of this episode when he's eating the food, something jumps out and it jumps on him.
It was awesome.
Yeah. So that was like the payback from the spiders.
And Mando does the stop playing with your food. He like taps with the stick, it jumps back in, stop playing with your food.
Yeah.
Which is really good. There's the landing right there. They don't show us any of the other part.
Mm-hmm.
Then of course this is cool. And I love that her helmet matches the Clone Wars and has sort of that the design on it.
And the other 2 actually had matching uniforms. They were both blue, and it was kind of that whole, I think, remember how they had the battle between the different colored Mandalores?
Well, that was the different clans, the different houses, right? Each house had a different color associated with it. And that's what, in that Clone Wars clip that we showed, that different houses were pledging their loyalty to her with the Darksaber, and that was uniting them all.
Right.
Which, yeah.
I was going to say, one other thing that really kind of stuck out in this episode, not really stuck out, but it kind of like the first 2 episodes, Mando was like, "I'm not letting the child out of my sight. I'm not letting the child out of my sight. There's no way I'm going to let it." And then what's the first thing he does in this episode? He
gives it to the frog lady.
House.
He gives it to the frog lady. And of course, we're all thinking he's going to eat all the eggs. What are you doing?
But he didn't.
Right?
Yeah, he didn't. I think he realized the whole like life thing after that.
Yeah, he may have gotten it. Some more just cool concept art.
I love the way
that's Tusk. We didn't talk much about this planet or the Mon Cala that were on this planet, like Admiral Akbar.
Right.
And there's also another species here, which comes from the Clone Wars, where those 2 live together on Mon Cala, which is the planet for the Mon Calamari. And I forget this second species here. They live together. They're not really in peace, but they live together. And there's a Clone War battle around it and some information around it. But of course, it's all based on Admiral Akbar. Just take his character and go on with it, which is really cool. That's the stash of weapons and the ship that these guys go to catch. There's the trawler, I guess you'd call that. I don't know what you call it.
Yep, fishing trawler.
And here you go.
Right.
There's the egg getting eaten.
Payback, exactly.
I love some of these images. They're just great. So this ship here looks a lot like the Razor Crest.
A little bit
different, but similar for sure.
The Razor Crest, really quick, just to kind of get back to what to me, it kind of keeps reminding me of, and I'm going to jump out of Star Wars. It reminds me of Serenity, the ship from Firefly.
Okay.
It totally does. And this episode, the biggest way, because every time it took off or was landing, little pieces of it were flying off. One of the biggest things that was so funny about Firefly was that whenever the ship was doing that, you'd see like a piece just fly off, and then the captain be like, "What was that?" That's what it was reminding me of. It was funny.
That's good. Now, I will say that I wasn't sure what was going to happen here at the end. I don't think we ever really.
Yeah. And we kind of proved that stormtroopers still really haven't improved their marksmanship either.
We did. In fact, I think it is mentioned during this episode that they couldn't hit the side of a bantha.
Which was considering how many there were. It was cool because during that whole battle, Mando let the other Mandalorians take the lead, but at one point when they got stymied, it was like Mando just stepped up and he was like, "Okay, this is what we're gonna do." He took control.
Yeah, let's go. Yep, and he did. He took control. He threw the
leadership skills.
Yeah, he got hit a bunch of times too, but his armor looks so much better than theirs, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's not as
huge. It really does. It looks thicker. It looks newer. It's good stuff. And it makes me wonder, just in general, as we look at the schedule, because we know we got another episode coming out tomorrow. What from the Beskar point of view and the purge that we heard so much about. When you think back to that Rebels episode, Ed, and then you look to seeing Moff Gideon with the dark saber, did the purge happen in between there sometime? Is that, or is it back even further?
It still wouldn't give you the story why she lost the dark saber, though, because she still has her armor, she still has her control over her friends and stuff like that. So I don't think it fell apart that badly. She had to have lent it. She had to have somehow lost it in some type of way, which I'm sure we're going to find out. I don't see how they can kind of dangle this one without letting us know what became of her, unless we're going to have another series. They keep dangling these different series that are going to spin off.
They do, man. There are so many loose ends out there. It's absolutely nuts. We only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 episodes to go, and so many storylines to touch on because we haven't seen Cara Dune. We haven't seen Grief Karga. We haven't seen any of these other characters that we know he's going to run into. And it makes me wonder, just from that quick shot in episode 5 that I showed, or in chapter 5, that had, the Frog Lady, and it had Dr. Mandible, and it had the Gonk Droid. Think about that episode where you went to that planet where they had the fishing and they took out the ATST. Are all those characters going to come back, or do they play into this at some point? There's so many loose items out there that I can't wait to figure out what they're going to do.
Yeah, it'll be fun.
Definitely fun. That's for sure. You know what? The Star Wars universe just keeps going, Ed.
Wow. Yeah.
It's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. We're just up here and we keep adding a couple of characters every week when we look at this sucker, and there's so much more.
And that's what we want. I'm okay with that. We have old characters, but you know what? We've been using a lot of the Star Wars older characters for a while. So one of the new shows they're introducing are basically going to be characters we've never heard of, different stories I heard. It's going to be, I think, basically a big girl-run show, female-run producing and directing, with a lot of stories. And it kind of reminds me of what was, I'm sorry, the Star Wars movie that came out with the whole story of the Death Star's creation when they got rid of the plans. Something one.
Rogue One.
Right, Rogue One, where you never heard of those characters ever before in the Star Wars universe, and then they threw them at you in a movie and it was perfect. So
I think back to the games too, Ed. The new characters that are in Squadrons, the new characters that you're discovering in Tales from Galaxy's Edge, and even tying them back in with 3PO, with R2, with some of the others. That's I think it's cool as can be.
And one last quick thing to throw at you, Bobby Monahan used to be an SNL comedian and stuff like that. Still, he did the voice. He was the blue guy in
in the first episode.
He does the voice of the bartender in the Galaxy's Edge VR game that I just got.
I did not know that. He's the first guy to say Dank Farrik.
Okay, fair enough. We're going to find out what that means. I'm going to find out. We will find out.
Do some Googling. You'll find out that it's a swear word. And there, at least 4 times I've heard it. As you go back and watch, if you hear that said again, get the episode and the timestamp, because I'm going to put it together. Dank Farrik, Dank Farrik, Dank Farrik, because there's a bunch of it. There's at least 4. And when Mando said it, it's in context of, oh no, what happened to my ship? Dank Farrik. That's kind of where it came out. So
cool.
Ed, thanks, man. See, it's been an hour. I got through all that stuff, and there's so many things I didn't include, but that's because we want to do these every 2 weeks. If we waited another day, then we got a whole other episode to cover.
The battle with the stormtroopers, we could have spent a long time on that, even just by
maybe we get back to it someday. I mean, just if you look at WompRatRadio, and clearly we have Mandalorian to cover right now, but then we'll come back and we'll talk about Jedi someday, or we'll talk about a season of Clone Wars, or we'll talk about Rebels, or we'll get into Resistance, or we'll get into
Stormtrooper. That's a show to do one time.
Which one?
The evolution of the Stormtrooper.
Yeah, absolutely. The clone troopers all the way through.
Because think about it, they started out as clones. And now they are henchmen for gang leaders in the Outer Rim. The stormtroopers are falling apart.
Oh, you bring up a good point here, because when we saw in the second and third episode, the client, Those stormtroopers looked very disheveled, and we talked about it. They didn't look like stormtroopers.
They looked like out of work stormtroopers who were doing what they could to get by.
Right.
Not taking the time to clean their uniforms because there's not an officer over the top of them telling them to.
That wasn't the case in this last episode, where those stormtroopers were clearly Imperial, and that was an Imperial officer talking to Moff Gideon, and they were just as bad of aims, but they were Imperial stormtroopers. So even at the end, when "Long live the Empire" is what they had claimed. So Gideon is part of something that still thinks it's the Empire, and the Empire still rules, and they're not the First Order yet. I just think that's really cool.
Right? Yep.
All right, Ed. Thank you. Thank you, guys. A couple of you for watching us. We absolutely appreciate it. We're going to be syndicating this via iTunes, Google Play, WompRatRadio, all that good stuff. Check out the Disney Nerds podcast. Check out Sam's Disney Diary, YouTube channels, all that fun stuff. I think I'm going to leave everybody with the same intro that we start with because it's kind of cool. I got to add to it now. There's so many characters to add. And I want my VR goggles so I can go into the Droid Depot and make a droid.
You got to watch me with that intro. You got to watch me. I'm mouthing all the lines as you're going through it.
I'll have to do that next time. I can see you in the green room. So cool. Thanks, guys. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time. May the Force be with you.
I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye.
You're listening to WRRT, WompRatRadio.
Space. You will never find the more wretched hives come and
Most definitely. You are not a Jedi yet.
The Force is what gives the Jedi power.
I love you.
I know. Binds the galaxy together.
I'm Skywalker here to rescue you.
No celebrations.
As you
Half-witted, scruffy-looking nerf herder.
This is where the fun begins.
Last was to reveal ourselves to the Jedi.
Don't think. Use your instincts.
This is how liberty dies. With thunder's applause.
Ahsoka. My name is Ahsoka Tano.
Why did you come here?
Because of you and your friends.
Already know the truth. The belonging you seek is not behind you.
It is I.
Name's Rex. You'll call me Captain, sir.
They say 50 years old.
The commission was quite specific. The asset was to be terminated.
Slow down. Might want to put while you're here.
You might want to quit while behind.
You found those plans and bring me the pieces. I want alive. You're my fate disturbed.
He doesn't like sorry. I don't like to either. Bad feeling about this. Use the Force. Let go. We can't win. If you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than possibly imagined.
Put Captain Solo in the cargo hold.
Could be worse.
It's worse.
May the Force be with you.
Your destiny lies with me, Skywalker. Obi-Wan knew this to be true.
War's not look great.
You're right. You're right about